In this episode, I take a look at some common questions that I see being asked frequently, and indeed I'm asking myself, about buying a property, buying a house in Ireland. Hey, it's Terry Gorry, and this is the Irish Law and Small Business podcast. I am a solicitor and I do quite a bit of property law, a lot of conveyancing, and I have, leaving aside the solicitor profession, a lot of experience in buying and selling property over the last, I think since the mid-1980s. I bought my first property when I was 23. I've bought and sold a lot of properties since then. Residential properties, commercial investments, fixer-uppers, new properties, apartments, houses, commercial properties, shops, and so on. So I have a good bit of experience in buying and selling property. I understand the process that's involved, and then obviously being a solicitor as well, I do a lot of property on a daily basis in my solicitor's practice. In this video, I'm going to have a look at questions that have come up. I'm just having a look on my Samsung Galaxy tablet. I had a couple of videos there this morning. I was researching them on YouTube about buying a house in Ireland, and a lot of questions in the comments, and I thought I'd have a look at those questions and answer them, because they are questions that I have seen being asked repeatedly. So I think it would be a useful exercise. Leaving aside this video, which is not going to be a step-by-step to buying a house or anything of that nature, because I've done that type of video and have plenty of videos about property, about the property buying process, the conveyancing process, what to look out for, new properties, second-hand properties, apartments, houses, and so on. I've done plenty of videos about those topics, which you can find on my YouTube channel. But in this one, I want to look at the specific questions that appear to come up fairly regularly, and I'm using as a resource the existing video or videos that are on YouTube, and obviously people's comments are underneath and there's questions there. So that's what I'm going to have a look at. Okay, I hope you find it useful if you're looking to buy a house in Ireland. First question: at what step should you have a solicitor? You don't need a solicitor until you go sale agreed. When you go sale agreed, you will need a solicitor, regardless of whether you are a cash buyer or a mortgage buyer, because once you go sale agreed, the estate agent is going to want to instruct the vendor's solicitor to issue contracts. So at that point, you'll need to identify, when you're paying the booking deposit, who your solicitor is, so that contracts and title documents can be sent out to your solicitor. Any difference if a cash buyer? Not really, no. Not from sending out contracts perspective. Obviously, from the point of view of borrowing money and not being a cash buyer, you need to let the bank know, let the lender know who your solicitor is, because the lender will want to send out the loan offer to your solicitor, so that the solicitor can have a look at the terms and conditions, the special conditions of the loan offer, and advise you on that. At what point in this process would you do the building inspection? You should get, if you're carrying out, or if you're buying a second-hand house, you should get a structural survey carried out. So obviously the time to get a structural survey carried out is before you sign the contract. So any time before you go sale agreed, or between going sale agreed and signing the contract, that's the time you need to do your structural survey, because there's no point finding out after you've signed the contract that there is significant problems with the property, which will be identified in the structural survey. So any time between going sale agreed and signing the contract is when you would want to have a building inspection or structural survey carried out. I've a couple of videos on my channel as well about structural surveys and what should be covered in those. It's not just the structure of the property. Boundaries and so on should be looked at as well. Boundaries on the ground versus the folio, and some other things would need to be looked at. So have a look at those videos on my YouTube channel about structural surveys. Somebody else here is saying, I had a quote of €1,750 plus all the other fees, which seemed excessive. That's not the case at all. It's not excessive. That'll be the standard conveyancing fee. Could range anything from 1,200, 1,250 plus VAT up to £5,000 plus VAT. But something like 1,500 or 1,750 or thereabouts would be standard enough, plus all the other fees. All of the other fees are outlays and costs which will be incurred. They have nothing got to do with the solicitor, nothing got to do with legal costs. They have to do with stamp duty, which is payable to the state. That's a tax, essentially, property registration authority fees, and other necessary outlays and costs which will have to be incurred, and they wouldn't be part of the professional legal fee. Another question there, any advice on how to find a solicitor, especially when non-Irish and non-resident? I have plenty of clients who've come to me from outside of Ireland, who've contacted me through my website, through my YouTube channel, through my email. So shop around, make inquiries, look for quotations, and see how responsive the solicitor is who you're contacting, and that'll probably give you a good indication and a good feel for how responsive they're going to be through the process. And just on that, in terms of choosing a solicitor, it's a desk-based, legal, paper-based exercise from a solicitor's perspective. So you could get a solicitor in any part of the country who could act for you regardless of where your property is located, because the solicitor will not be doing a physical inspection. It'll be a desk-based exercise. It'll be title documents, land registry folios, registry of deeds, or whatever. Is it true a PPS is needed to buy property in Ireland? Strictly speaking, a PPS number is not necessary to buy a property in Ireland, but you will need it to pay the stamp duty. So in order to be registered as the owner and to pay the stamp duty in accordance with the law, you will need a PPS number. Even if you're from outside Ireland, it's relatively easy and relatively straightforward to obtain a PPS number and make the application online. So you should do a search on Google how to obtain a PPS number from outside Ireland, and you will be directed to the appropriate page of the relevant government website, government department website, and that'll give you an online application form and contact details and so on. It's relatively straightforward, there's no big deal there. This gentleman has a confusion, has a question. Some of the houses are only available for a lease of 100 years, and then you need to return the property back. No, you don't. If you have a lease, a long lease property, so the property is not freehold, it's not held in fee simple, it's held on long leasehold. The lease could be 100 years, it could be 250 years. That's of no real concern. It's the equivalent of freehold, because even on the expiry of the 100-year or 250-year lease, you are by law entitled to a new lease in any event. So don't worry about a long leasehold property. It could be 250 years, it could be 500 years, makes no difference. It's the equivalent of a freehold property, so there should be no concern there. Somebody else here then is contacting or making a comment on this video about trying to buy a property, a property hunt in Ireland from South Africa, and they're finding it incredibly stressful and frustrating. And basically they're saying they've contacted a huge amount of estate agents and have had no return or no call back. That's unfortunate, but they really need to focus not so much on the estate agents but on the individual properties. If they have an interest in individual property, then that particular estate agent should certainly be calling them back, and it would be very unprofessional and very foolish not to do so, especially when they are cash buyers. Question: if you're in the USA and want to just buy a house in Ireland cash, is it possible? Yes, there's no difficulty with that whatsoever. The only thing you'll need to do, there's no legal impediment on you, the only thing you will need to do is obtain a PPS number, a tax number, in order to pay the stamp duty within a certain period of time after purchasing the property. But there's no difficulty, there's no legal impediment on an outsider, on a non-Irish person, on an American or an EU citizen buying property in Ireland. There's no problem. Question here: I have cash, about 250,000 K or 250,000 euro. Do I need an auctioneer? No, you don't need an auctioneer, but you do need to find a property. it's up to you to find the property. It will be difficult, obviously, if you're trying to source properties from outside Ireland, but if you're in Ireland, then obviously you must do your own hunting, I suppose. There is the odd property sourcing person. I've come across one or two on the likes of LinkedIn and so on, so you will find somebody like that, and it may well be worth your while to obtain the services of some person like that, because obviously if you're outside Ireland and you're trying to house hunt, property hunt, it's going to be very, very difficult, because you're going to be relying on perhaps videos and the internet and so on. But it would be useful to have somebody on the ground, I suppose, to go and have a look at a house for you. And obviously you would be down the line then getting a structural survey carried out and so on. But there is a difficulty in trying to locate and trying to make inquiries about houses and properties from outside Ireland, because it will be just more difficult. So it would be worth your while probably investigating and seeing, can you find a professional. And I do know a lady down the country, I think she's in Waterford, who does this sort of thing. I see her on LinkedIn, but I just can't for the life of me remember her name just at the moment. That's it. I hope I've answered some questions that might have crossed your mind, or you might have had. Check out my YouTube channel. I have a lot of videos on there about property. As I say, I'm buying and selling property for a long time, and I also, as a solicitor, act in conveyances every day of the week, quite frankly, apart from the weekend, obviously, even though I get queries at the weekend as well. So
thanks a lot for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode.